It's June 26th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the latest developments on North Korean provocations. The North on Wednesday morning launched a ballistic missile into the East Sea that apparently ended in failure, South Korea's military says. The regime also flew yet another round of waste-carrying balloons for a second straight night on Tuesday. CCTV footage from the lithium battery plant where a blaze killed 23 people on Monday shows it took just around 40 seconds for smoke to swallow up the facility. Police have charged the head of the plant and 4 others in relation to the accident. Russia and Ukraine each let go of 90 prisoners of war in the biggest swap between the two sides on Tuesday, while the first batch of ammunition bought through an initiative led by Czech Republic arrived in Ukraine. North Korea fired a ballistic missile toward the East Sea this morning, which apparently failed. Wednesday's launch came hours after the regime sent more trash-carrying balloons to the south late Tuesday. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung starts us off.
North Korea on Wednesday morning launched a ballistic missile that appears to have failed. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the regime fired a ballistic missile toward the EC at around 5:30 a.m. from the Pyongyang area. A military official explained that the North appears to have attempted to test launch a hypersonic missile. However, the military said the launch apparently failed, as the missile reportedly exploded mid-air after traveling some 250 kilometers. Seoul and Washington's intelligence authorities are conducting further analysis of the launch. This is the regime's first ballistic missile launch in almost a month. The launch comes after Pyongyang earlier this week slammed the arrival of the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt in South Korea and warned of taking new deterrence measures. The missile provocation also comes hours after North Korea sent trash-carrying balloons for the second straight night on Tuesday. This marks the 6th balloon launch since May 28th. On Monday night, the regime sent around 350 waste balloons, of which 100 landed in South Korean territory, mostly in Seoul and North Gyeonggi-do province. Pyongyang is presumed to have launched around 2,000 balloons so far. The latest balloon delivery caused dozens of domestic and international flights at Incheon International Airport to be suspended for around 3 hours early Wednesday to prevent the risk of an accident. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea's army has conducted live fire drills involving its domestically developed Chunmoo multiple rocket launch systems. The training was held on Tuesday in Poryong, Chungcheongnam-do province, to mark the 74 years since the Korean War. It aimed to enhance the Chunmoo's precision strike capabilities and deterrence against evolving North Korean threats. 7 Chunmoo units launched 48 long-range guided rockets to hit targets 55 kilometers away, and some 190 troops also took part in the training. Now, Chunmoo is a key military weapon designed to counter the North's long-range artillery threats. It can also fire guided missiles with a maximum range of 80 kilometers. CCTV footage capturing the moment the fire started at a lithium battery plant south of Seoul on Tuesday shows just how devastating the accident was. 5 officials from the factory have been charged in relation to the blaze that resulted in at least 23 deaths. Our Kim Jung-soo reports.
In CCTV footage recorded around 10:30 a.m. on Monday, smoke comes out of stack of batteries, startling a worker who was approaching it. Within a minute, more smoke fills the room, prompting other workers to gather and try to stop the fire by moving batteries and bringing a fire extinguisher. The batteries then begin sparking. The police and fire department are conducting an investigation based on the CCTV footage into why the fire started. The fire at a lithium battery factory in Hwaseong, south of Seoul, killed at least 23 people, mostly foreign nationals. According to authorities, 17 were from China and 1 from Laos. 5 were South Koreans. They were mostly working on the second floor of a factory where final product checks and packaging was done. The identification of the victims is expected to take some time due to the extent of the injury sustained. Only 3 South Koreans identified so far. The police have charged 5 factory officials, including the owner, and banned them from leaving the country. The owner is also charged with violating the Serious Accidents Punishment Act, which was enacted back in 2021 to prevent serious accidents in workplaces.
I apologize that so many lives have been lost.
According to reports, a senior official at the factory said there had been another fire on the premises involving batteries just last weekend. The fire was put out by workers at the time, but it wasn't reported to the fire department. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Medical professors at major hospitals here in Seoul have decided to put aside their collective walkout for now. But investigations into those who actually ditched their patients are now in full swing. For more, we're joined by Professor Song Se-ryun. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Good to join you.
South Korean police have launched a probe into 3 medical professors and also 2 doctors who participated in a major walkout this month. Now, that's because of the effect their actions had on their patients, right?
Right. There are 3 professors, medical professors. Their violation is the Medical Service Act of '59. When government ordered them to resume their medical services, they defied them. But 2 other doctors were sued by the patient. Patients are claiming that their defiance of the government order is a proximate cause of their damages. They have to prove their damages. They have to make the connection between the defiance and the damage. So it's a different kind of lawsuits.
Well, then the question is, how will they each be held responsible? I mean, is there any way they can, get away from potential punishments?
Well, you have to go to the merits of the Medical Service Act of '59. It says if the government the order to resume medical service is necessary for public health, if there's a public hazard, if it's emergency situations, probably those are clear events. For example, if we're in the pandemic or natural disasters, probably that's clear. But at this point, probably doctors would think that they have enough reason to fight in the courts and to see what the highest court will say about the legality and the appropriateness of these government policies.
Well, I'm sure patients are thinking the same, that they have enough reasons to, sue them. But what about the patients? I mean, how can they be compensated if it all ends well in their, case?
Well, their cases are probably civil suits if they're looking for damages. They have more difficult lawsuits because not only do they have to prove that the defiance of the doctors is illegal, the same as the earlier case, but they have to overcome this answer that if they are not getting their medical service from one doctor, why don't they go to the doctor next to it? There are other doctors that could be open. So they have to make the clear connection that this is the doctor who caused the damages because of their closure or not providing the medical service. So that's probably harder to do.
Definitely. Professor Song, and it's not just doctors, medical students are also being investigated. Now, the Education Ministry has requested an investigation into 6 medical students who forced their classmates to skip classes. Now, how can such an act be illegal?
Well, on the face, we have a right to education, so free exercise of that right, if it infringed or being curbed by threats or some strong-armed actions, that's an actionable case. But I think that suing the doctors from the patients and applying this kind of pressure seems to be what the government is doing to kind of turn up the heat.
Right, and maybe that's why some medical professors here in Seoul have decided to, kind of stop doing their collective, strike, walkout. Now, the government will decide actually next week what to do and how to deal with those medical professors and students and doctors who have not returned to duty. What kind of actions or measures should we expect the government to take?
Considering that they have been on the strong stance so far, probably it's hard to imagine that they will relent and be conciliatory or come to a negotiating table anytime soon, especially when the Doctors Association also took a strong stance. So it's a very unfortunate situation for the country because the stakeholders involved is not only the doctors, government, but the patients and nurses and the medical profession and the industries as a whole. It is, to begin with, a very complex and very difficult reform that they have to go through. But now it seems like they're both engaged in a very, very simple act of brinkmanship, which is not the way to solve this complex problem. So it is, I think, it's a national disaster because of the stances of these few stakeholders taking a very strong stance. And it's becoming, for a lot of patients, a literally matter of life and death. So right. I think that somebody has to come up and suggest some kind of mediation, some kind of a way to talk and solve this case, not only not in the courtroom per se, but as a political skills that they have.
Indeed, a headache for many of us, patients, the medical community, and also the government. All right, Professor Song, thank you so much for your insight. As always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Russia and Ukraine each handed back 90 prisoners of war on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the first shipment of ammunition from Czech initiative has arrived in Ukraine, while Kyiv has begun talks to join the European Union. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With the United Arab Emirates working as the intermediary, Russia and Ukraine on Tuesday took part in a prisoner exchange involving 90 prisoners of war each. The swap is one of several periodic prisoner swaps made during the more than 2 years of war, with the latest exchange taking place in May when each country handed over 75 prisoners of war. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the latest swap is on the path to bringing all detainees home. Meanwhile, the first shipment of ammunition from a Czech initiative arrived in Ukraine on Tuesday. This comes as the EU member has led an effort to buy ammunition with funding coming from NATO allies to help Ukraine in its war with Russia. Officials in Prague said in May that the first 50,000 to 100,000 artillery shells would arrive in Ukraine in June. The Czech government said that over $1.8 billion in payments or firm commitments from 15 donor countries had been made, which would allow for 500,000 artillery rounds for Ukraine by the end of the year. Of the countries that pledged to take part in the Czech-led initiative, only 5 had delivered the promised payments by the end of May. The European Union and Ukraine also began membership talks on Tuesday, a move Russia has long opposed. The EU accession talks began during an intergovernmental conference in Luxembourg, with President Zelensky on his social media page on X saying that his people are realizing their European dream, adding that Ukraine is returning to Europe. However, Tuesday's talks will most likely be just a small step on a long road, as Turkey has been in accession talks for almost 2 decades without a membership. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Pentagon on Tuesday raised the possibility of North Korean troops being used as cannon fodder if they were to be sent to fight alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. According to a Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder, North Korea should consider what it will mean to send troop assistance for Russia in what he called an illegal war against Ukraine. The comments come as deepened military ties between Pyongyang and Moscow have led to rising speculation that Russia could ask the North to send troops to help its war effort. Ryder also commented on the growing talks of need for South Korea to consider a nuclear option, saying that Washington's policy of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula hasn't changed. Duty-free shops have long been a must-visit tourist spot for many foreigners coming to South Korea. But these days, more and more tourists are turning to regular shops on the streets instead. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea has been witnessing a rebound in the number of foreign tourists, recovering to nearly 89% of pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels in the first 3 months of this year. Duty-free shops have traditionally enjoyed the bulk of foreign sales, but that is no longer the case, at least for now.
In the past, large group tour packages might have made a beeline to the city's duty-free shops. But these days, more tourists are choosing regular shops on the street, like this store, to buy the latest must-have items.
CJ Group's health and beauty drugstore Arirang is one of those must-visit destinations for foreign visitors, having seen a significant 263% year-on-year surge in first quarter sales. Shoppers say it is not just a store, but rather a trendy cultural spot with a wide selection of products.
I think the reason is this place, it's a cultural spot for us as a tourists. When we watch videos about Korea and stuff like that, we always see Arirang in the city and we want to see it.
And I mainly chose Arirang because they have a broader selection of products, and I can test some of the products here. And there's some stuff who can help me out if I wonder something. So that has been very helpful here.
The popular dollar shop chain Daiso is another enjoying a boost in sales, with first quarter overseas car sales and transactions increasing by 76% and 61% respectively. Online fashion platform Bushinsa's Myeongdong store too has seen an increase in the number of foreign customers, with the figure climbing to 45% in May from around 30% in March. Foreigners' changed consumer trends can be seen in department stores as well. According to the data, foreign tourists' top choice for shopping was road shops, followed by department stores. Major ones, Lotte, Shinsegae, and Hyundai all saw at least 50 to 230% increases in foreign sales this year from January to May year-on-year.
Many tourists who come to Korea now come after seeing places on social media, so they visit ordinary shops a lot. Duty-free shops are losing customers because they are not actively promoting themselves on social media, nor do they have many products displayed. It is important for customers to actually see products and choose from a wide selection, and that is why small shops are popular.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has arrived at the U.S. territory of Saipan to formalize a plea deal at a U.S. district court and leave as a free man after a 14-year-long legal battle. Just a few hours ago, Assange was seen entering the courthouse, accompanied by Australia's ambassador to the U.S. and former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. Last week, Assange signed a deal with the U.S. government to plead guilty to one charge of espionage instead of the 18 charges he had originally faced. The deal would allow him to avoid further prison time, and he will be free to return to his home, Australia. Assange left the UK on Monday after spending 5 years in Belmarsh Maximum Security Prison, where he fought against his extradition to the US. Now to Kenya, where at least 5 protesters have been shot dead by police and a section of the country's parliament set on fire as demonstrations against new tax proposals escalate across the country. Violence broke out on Tuesday in Nairobi as angry protesters stormed through police lines to break into the parliament, vandalizing the interior and stealing the ceremonial mace before starting fires. According to the Kenya Medical Association, the police then open-fired the live ammunition, killing at least 5 people. Kenyan President William Ruto called the protests an unprecedented attack on democracy and blamed the deaths on organized criminals. Protests have been ongoing for days, with President Ruto aiming to raise $2.7 billion to ease debt costs. China's Chang'e 6 lunar probe returned to Earth on Tuesday afternoon local time, with the re-entry capsule landing in the northern Chinese region of Inner Mongolia. With that, it has become the first lunar expedition to bring back samples from the moon's far side. According to China's state media CCTV, the collected samples will be transported by air to Beijing for analysis. Launched on May 3rd from the Wenchang Satellite Launch Center on the island of Hainan, the probe landed on the moon's South Pole Aitken Basin, an impact crater on the side of the moon that always faces away from the Earth. Chinese President Xi Jinping called the mission a landmark achievement. Britain's King Charles III and Queen Camilla welcomed the Japanese Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako on Tuesday, marking the start of the three-day state visit with a ceremony on Horse Guards Parade, a carriage procession and a state banquet. Emperor Naruhito's visit is the first by a Japanese head of state since 1998 and was postponed from 2020 due to the pandemic. After inspecting the Guard of Honor in their traditional scarlet uniforms and black bearskin hats, King Charles and Emperor Naruhito traveled to Buckingham Palace in a gold-edged horse-driven carriage. The visit highlights the ties between the two countries, where Emperor Naruhito aims to deepen military, cultural and scientific connections.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. It was a fairly refreshing day yesterday with nice summer breeze. It's going to be warmer today under brighter skies, and UV rays will soar to very high to extreme levels again in parts of Jeollado and Gyeongsangdo provinces during the day today. So be sure to protect your skin from too much exposure to the sun's UV rays. And afternoon temperatures will go up 1 to 3 degrees Celsius higher this afternoon, topping out at 30 degrees here in the capital, Chuncheon, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Gyeongju this afternoon. But Daegu goes up to 29 degrees, and Jeju Island will be topping out at 27 degrees. Meanwhile, a monsoonal front approaches Jeju Island in the late afternoon today, gradually spreading to the rest of southern regions by tomorrow morning. Rain will come down harder tomorrow and Friday, along with thunderstorms. Now, the monsoon season looks to begin in central regions this weekend, which will put the brakes on the heat, as the heat is forecast to get stronger in the capital through Friday, and we could see a high of 33 degrees on Friday afternoon here in the capital. And it looks like it's going to rain throughout next week. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time.